welcome back to my devlog series on my game Final Exit. So while the weather was lovely and we've been getting some amazing sunshine today and everyone's on lockdown, I thought we'll go for a bit of a walk first, check out the lovely English countryside. Usually gives my brain a bit of relaxation from trying to figure out why my game's broken. And it usually helps. Usually when you're not thinking about something, like in the shower or going for a walk, that's usually when the ideas come to you. Because I might have contradicted myself a bit on my code conversion in some previous episodes. If you've seen any of my other episodes, when I was talking about the C# of the main game engine, we had lots of, I've just completely written over my code. We had lots of wait for seconds in here. And you can see them commented out. We had lots of wait for seconds here. And you couldn't have that in the main on trigger enter event like you could in JavaScript. So what I was doing every time this appeared, I was making my own function call to await animation, which is a function down below, which I'll show you, which passes in the variable or the float, the length of the animation, which is what I was doing above here. It would go to that function, which I've probably I'll just comment now because I was doing some tests. Ignore that. So it's going into here, taking that length, that float that we had up in the function call above, and it was saying wait for seconds for that amount of time. So that could be half a second, 2 seconds, 0.1 of a second, doesn't matter. Finish doing that, and then go back up to wherever we were. Let's just say we're here, doesn't matter. And then once it had done this bit, then continue. Now that's how it used to work in the trigger event, on trigger event function in the JavaScript file. And I thought this was all good. I thought this was all working. I thought I'd been really clever because the game was playing until, I think I might have done it in a previous episode and it went wrong, until where actually I needed that wait for seconds to actually be used. Knocking over normal blocks wasn't really doing it, but when I was pushing a block over here off the edge of a platform, it was breaking. And I'll just show what happened. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to break this this prefab. I don't remember how you do it now. How do you even do that? It's up here, isn't it? I'm sure you can do it in there. Break prefab. So basically any changes I do here won't affect the prefab, which means it won't affect all the other objects. So just to be quicker, let's just move this along so he's always there to push off. So what I'll do, I'll switch between the JavaScript file and the C# file and show you the differences and the problems. Now I can't have them both on at once, even if they're ticked off, because as I said in another in another video, the on trigger event will still call even if the script's turned off. So let's just remove that. Put the JavaScript one on and play this. Now there'll be two things that happen here. It should go completely wrong like that, which is very strange. Oh, right, sorry. Right, as I've named this scene, let's show when things are wrong. As I've named this scene, the word test under it, as it's not, say, level 6, level 7, it's breaking on how I load my backgrounds in. I'm not going to go into detail, doesn't really matter too much. I'll just turn this off, but basically what it does, it loads different backgrounds and schemes in based on the level. As it's got the word test in, it breaks that. So anyway, so this should play, but what you'll probably see is the block falling really slow. That doesn't matter. Oh, it shows you should plan your videos ahead of time. As that's still got the word test in it, my I should edit all this out, shouldn't I? But my level complete script, which basically says have you knocked the block over, have you not knocked the block over, all this sort of stuff, is breaking because it doesn't understand what that means. When you push it, it pushes it over, Don't worry about it falling slowly. I'll tell you that in a minute. But the point is, it falls off, and all these print statements are me just sort of pointing at various bits in the code, because I just like to put random bits in there to figure out, you know, that's at that bit there, that bit's at that bit there, so you can sort of trace where your code gets to and when it's going wrong. I'm sure we all do things like that. The reason it's falling slow is because I just dragged that JavaScript on. It's not got the right falling speed, which probably should be declared explicitly in the code, but it was being done on top of the prefab. Doesn't really matter. Obviously, when I put that in again, so I've just restarted it. But the point is, it works. Right, so when I press play with the C# script now on the cube, on the block, sorry. So when he pushes it over, it hangs in midair. It falls off, so it plays the animation clip, the correct clip, which is fine. And I'm getting I know all of these print statements don't mean anything to anyone apart from me. But the point is, on the JavaScript file, I only say got 10 of them for different stages in the code, and here I'm getting like 3-4 times the amount. It's the same code. It's the same clip animation, it's the exact same scenes, everything's the same. What's going wrong? And I spent probably the last, I don't know, weekend, it'll be Wednesday now, the last couple of days, going through all the lines of code and functions, putting all these print statements in, trying to work out where it was breaking, what was different, why when the JavaScript file was pushed off, he only got one on trigger event call, which he should when you push it and it falls off. But when you do the C# one, he was getting 3 or 4 calls, and why does it stop there? Why doesn't it keep falling? And it just went mad trying to figure it out. I was slowly trying to figure things out, how like my tag should say block fallen, and he was saying block, and I was like, well, that's it. And then you try and work out where it should be doing that, and it was actually doing that. It is called block fallen till about here, and then when it rotates off, it changes, and there was something extra happening, and I couldn't figure it out. I thought I was going mad. So in the end, it was very, very simple, as most of these things are. Me being a bit of maybe being a bit silly with code, not understanding it fully enough, and contradicting myself, like I said earlier. So we had these yield return you wait for seconds that you can't have in non-trigger event in C#, and I was replacing these wait animation functions, passes the variable into a function below that actually has then the wait for seconds command in, which is fine, but not in this function. So basically, what's happening now is I call this function and pass in, say that's a second, it doesn't matter, it's arbitrary, so pass in a second. It then calls this wait any function, which is here, and it says wait for seconds with that variable. And if I say wait a second, when it's finished, in my mind, somewhere around here, in my mind it was doing that, and then when it finished, it then comes back to here and goes, right, we can now set these variables, we can now run that function, set some variables, and move on. Which is the way it used to work. But as we can't use the wait for seconds on trigger event anymore, it actually wasn't doing it. So based on some print statements here, I could see that it was calling this function. It was going down to here and waiting, say, a second. However, I wanted it to then, where were we around? I don't know where we were, doesn't really matter, they're everywhere. I then wanted it to, when it finished doing this, then continue with all this code. But it wasn't. It was doing that, waiting 5 seconds, in that function. But all of this was still continuing. Now, it may seem a little obvious if you know what you're doing, but unfortunately I don't always know what I'm doing. So it was getting this variable called falling changed to 1 instantly. It wasn't waiting for the length of the animation. So what that means simply was, when the block is pushed, it's supposed to wait for the full length of the animation, which is to here, then change to the variable change falling variable to 1. And it wasn't doing that, it was doing that instantly. So when it was doing that, it actually thought it had landed here, or landed on the platform, and it was getting called again and again, and it was caught in this sort of silly loop, which is why I'm getting multiple calls and outputs here. And then after I figured that one out, I thought, oh, what an absolute idiot, because I'd gone all the way through all my code, commenting out all of these yield return you wait for seconds, and putting these in, which was completely wrong. And the answer was something I already knew how to answer, but I didn't think I should be doing it. So, yeah, let's go to the on top of the on trigger enter event. So instead of having this here, you put a so I knew about the I enumerator before. And I've used it many times in other scripts and projects and stuff, but for some reason I thought I shouldn't be using that on trigger enter. So in my early tests, which I'm probably going to contradict myself again, my early tests suggest this actually works. So if that's true, I need to go and waste a load of time and get rid of my wait any functions and put the yield return back in. So for instance, that one here, this one here, go back to what I had a few days ago, but that's just coding, you know, you learn as you go along. So what I'm going to do, pause the video here, do this, see if I was even right, and if it is, I'll come back and show you it working very soon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's got to be 20, 25 birds there. So, I've been through all of my script we were just talking about. Let's get this back up. And let's just search what we were doing. All the wait for seconds I've brought back on. Like here, and turned off this silly function I had before that actually wasn't working. So now all the wait for seconds are back, and the on trigger event we spoke about is now an I enumerator, and actually a lot of other functions have had to be as well. Because this one used to be public because it has a yield return new in it. Anyway, so I've done all of that, and I've just had a quick go, so you can see the C# is now on there, like it should be. And fingers crossed, famous last words. Bing, falls off. Ding, 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 ding. So, whether that's actually going to work anywhere, or I was just absolutely lucky. Probably won't skip too far ahead into all the other blocks. I want to do that actually properly next. So let's just pick, you know, a random other level and see if this works, because I want to talk through the ladder in a minute and some other functionality. So let's just see what else breaks. Bound to be stuff that's breaking because we're literally changing all the scripts. All the logic should stay the same. Is it going to work this way around? It does. Yeah, it actually worked. Excellent. Okay, right. So, what I think I'll do now is go back potentially an episode or so ago. I was talking about the platforms, and this is where I found the thing that broke, and I jumped to actually the wrong one. So about ladders. So I might as well talk about that quickly to finish this video off. This ladder or tube, or whatever you want to call it, from what I remember, and I'm sure there are prefabs or scripts or whatever out there to do this for you. But I remember this was absolute nightmare for me to figure out. I felt quite simple trying to figure it out. And why is it so difficult? So it all works completely fine here. You know, if you basically, I'm pressing down here and up here. If I was to press down and up here, he doesn't do it. Or over here, he doesn't do it. Oh, I just need to know. That's the problem. I press down, I've let go, I move along, and he moves down. So, it's taking a variable and holding on to it even though I've let go of the key. That never used to happen on the iPhone. So I guess my iPhone key, my iPhone touch input works a bit better than this. So I know you can't see, but I've just pressed up and I've let go. And you walk along and he still does it. So basically when I let go of my key, I need to undo the ladder, reset the ladder variable if you like. So I'll go through that in a minute. That's a good fix. Also, when you pick up a block, I don't know why that block doesn't go in his hand, but the point is, it's in his hand, and when you go down, his hands are still in the air, and when he goes up, his hands are still in the air. You drop the block, and if he was to come down, his hands aren't in the air. So I know it doesn't sound like much, but things like that all need doing on his animation clip. So if he's holding a block, play a different animation. If he's not holding a block, play the normal animation. However, so I'm sure someone who is far more gifted or clever at scripting could tell me how to do this properly. But it works, this ladder, and I'm sure I could have bought one or got a script or something like that. But sometimes I like figuring out things myself. That's the whole point of doing this. And also, if I ever want to change it, I know how it works. Right, so I've got the ladder here, so just a group ladder here with a capsule collider on it. I don't know whether that's actually needed. Anyway, and your mesh renderer of the actual ladder. On it are on it are I guess trigger events, yes, of the bottom and top. So the bottom here, as you can see, I don't know if you can see in here. So if I just turn that off, one there, the top, that one there, turn that on off just so you can see it, and the bottom landing. So probably doesn't really make much sense, but they're basically sort of, if he's walking along and he touches this one at the top, no, that's not a lie, that's a lie. I do remember now. The capsule collider here has to detect whether the character is in region of the ladder. So if he walks up next to it here or here, where you're near enough to activate the ladder animation, if you like, you can press up and down. These ones are to work out when you've finished animating. Now, I mean, thinking about it, I guess what I could have done is, the way it works is you press up, and in the code, it just basically applies an up force or negative gravity. So if you're at the bottom here, you press up, negative gravity sends him up. When he triggers this collider here, turn the gravity back to normal, and he comes up, and he lands back down. So for instance, when it presses play, oh, this is making some sense by the way. Right, so we've gone through this main collider. When I press up, the gravity is reversed, and you see he does that sort of like up and down moment. He goes whoop, up and down, up, down. That's when gravity kicks back in. So when he's coming up and he touches this trigger, gravity is reversed and he goes whoop and comes back down. And when he goes down here, I basically move him off the platform, and gravity pulls him down, and then when he reaches this bottom pad here, start moving him back in the Z so he snaps back into that platform. So let's give an example. So when he goes up, comes up, falls back down, and comes down, snaps back into place there, up. Simple. Now, I found it very hard to figure out this with these placement of these things, trying to make it all dynamic and whatnot. Actually, just thinking about it now, I could have just done like a little animation, couldn't I, of him going up and down, and played that, because well, actually, I mean, in later levels, I don't know if I can randomly jump to some. There are much longer ladders. Let's put a few more. I can even find one, probably not. You get to see some of the crazy levels you'd like to have. But anyway, most of the ladders are all the same, so that then you get much longer ladders, and the same theory applies. On here you've got that top one, bottom one, all does the same thing. I guess there could have been animation clips, and for this one the animation clip was just longer. Could have all worked. Maybe that was best, but I mean, it works now. I think, things always slightly break. I mean, if I do find this actually is really breaking, I will maybe I'll go back to animation clips, especially if I redo the character and whatnot. But it works and it's dynamic, and why change it if it works? One thing I did mention before, why is that button there moved when it's a prefab, whereas if I go to there, bing, there it goes. Really simple. I'm sure it's pretty obvious, maybe not, but what have we got? What are they called? It's the push button. It's just been moved, and you can see they're slightly in bold. I don't know what's happened, so I'll just go revert to prefab. Bing, and it goes. Simple as that. I mean, I need to test a lot more levels and go through blocks now. I'm debating whether I go to 2019 now, so I can start optimizing things, the look, the speed, the frames per second, the shaders. Whether I keep going through things. I mean, I did the first 10 levels, which is the first world. This next chunk, 11 to 20, backgrounds change. We've now got a different block. This is the green one. But backgrounds change, you get a new thing going. So I think I'm going to do that. And it gives me a chance of error checking things as I go along. So if I do a couple of these per episode or something like that, and then we can test they actually work, because things are bound to break, as we found out. And then I can explain how other things work. And once I whiz through these, I do chunks of 10 at a time. Then maybe update to 2019, and also probably 2020 is almost out. The beta or beta for American. And yeah, okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got any thoughts, whether my ramblings make any sense or not, any advice or any questions, let me know, and I'll see you next time.